Have you ever seen a small corporate announcement and just had a feeling that there's way more to the story? Well, sometimes what looks like a simple memo is really just the tip of a giant iceberg. A single policy change can pull back the curtain on this huge, tangled web of conversations and anxieties happening right under our noses. And that is exactly what we are going to unpack today.
Okay, so where does this all start? With a bit of a mystery, actually. A blogger over in Japan noticed that a blog post from OpenAI, one of the biggest names in AI, had just vanished. Poof, a digital ghost. So the big question is, what was in that post? And why did they want it to disappear?
Well, that vanished post, it was about a huge policy shift. OpenAI announced that, starting in December, it was going to start allowing erotic content on its star product, ChatGPT. Now, there was a catch. It was only for users who could prove they were adults. But still, this was a massive change to the platform's rules.
Now, OpenAI's CEO, Sam Altman, he put a nice little spin on it. He called it treating adults as adults. Sounds pretty reasonable, right? But, and this is a big but, this decision wasn't happening in a vacuum. The company is dealing with lawsuits over teen safety, and they're under immense pressure to keep growing their user base and, finally turn a real profit.
So this one little announcement, it didn't just start one conversation. No way. It was more like throwing a rock into a pond. The ripples just kept spreading out, and they started crashing into all these other passionate debates that were already bubbling up across the internet. And this is where things get really messy. You've got all these different pressures colliding. You have safety advocates screaming that online age verification systems don't even work. You've got this absolutely tragic lawsuit claiming the AI played a role in a teenager's suicide. And then, get this, a survey finds that 1 in 5 students say they've had a romantic relationship with an AI. Wild, right? And all of this is going down while OpenAI is in a brutal tooth-and-nail fight for market dominance. The stakes really could not be higher. And the first big wave from this announcement crashed into a debate that seems totally unrelated at first, the debate over bias and representation in AI. Right around the same time, the BBC ran a story that, on the surface, looks like a real win for inclusivity. They reported that ChatGPT could finally generate an accurate image of a woman with one arm. And look, on the face of it, this is a feel-good story. The technology failed, a news outlet asked why, the company fixed it, and the user felt seen. A clear step forward for progress and inclusion. Seems great, right? Well, the internet's reaction was a lot more cynical than that. For a lot of people online, the reaction was basically, hold on a second. To them, this wasn't really about genuine inclusion. It looked more like just another big corporation gobbling up our data. This time, data about disabilities to perfect their models and expand their business. The praise just rang hollow. And that skepticism, it just snowballed. Because at the exact same moment one person felt seen, another user, Naomi Bowman, had the complete opposite experience. She has sight in only one eye, and she found the AI was actively trying to erase her disability, literally evening out her eyes against her specific instructions. So the conversation quickly morphed from criticizing the tech to criticizing how the tech was being reported on. Folks on Reddit started pointing out what they saw as a pretty fundamental flaw in the reporting. The journalists were actually asking the AI why it was biased. They were interviewing the machine as if it were a conscious person with motivations and self-awareness. And this led to this massive wave of frustration online. The feeling was, wait a minute, the people whose job it is to explain this world-changing technology to us don't seem to get what it even is. That's when one user, Smash Capital, posted an analogy that just perfectly captured the feeling. I mean, that just nails the disconnect, doesn't it? An AI like ChatGPT isn't a person. It's a ridiculously complex pattern-matching machine. Asking it why it's biased is like asking a parrot to explain linguistics. You're talking to the wrong entity. You should be asking the people who trained it. So this huge gap between what the AI actually is and how we perceive it leads to something else. Something kind of weird. People are starting to recognize a distinct AI voice. And not just when they're talking to a chatbot, they're starting to see it pop up in professional creative work. And I'm not talking about some fringe theory here. A published author laid out an incredibly detailed case arguing that one of the biggest books of the year shows clear signs of being co-written by an AI. The evidence wasn't some single glaring error. No, it was a consistent pattern of these uncanny little moments that just don't feel quite human. It's like AI leaves behind these little fingerprints, The writing follows all the rules, sure, but there's no real lived experience behind it. You get weird things like a character punching a glass window when a human would just press their hands against it, or describing a spider web, which is sticky, as being soft as skin. It's the kind of mistake made by something that has read about the world, but has never actually touched it.
And this creepy, uncanny valley effect isn't just in books. Moderators on that same subreddit noticed a worrying trend they've started calling AI psychosis. They're seeing a rise in users who seem to be using AI to reinforce these obsessive, grand theories about the world, kind of blurring the lines of reality for themselves. And believe it or not, that brings us full circle.
Okay, so let's go all the way back. Remember that cynical Reddit discussion about AI and disability representation? The one that kicked off this whole part of the story? Well, one user connected that whole debate right back to our original news story, OpenAI's new policy on erotic content. Now, it's a harsh, cynical comment designed to be shocking. It connects the corporate desire for data with the new profit-driven move into adult content. But what happened next is the perfect, ironic ending to this whole tangled affair. The original poster, the user who started the cynical thread by sharing the BBC article, suddenly wanted to erase his own words from the internet. In a flash, he wanted to do the exact same thing OpenAI did with its blog post, make something controversial, just disappear. And there you have it. That's the story a single policy change can tell. It was never just about one company's announcement. It's about all of our collective anxieties, about representation, authenticity, and who's in control in the age of AI. It shows us struggling to understand this technology, fearing what it's doing to our art and our minds, and that very human impulse to just hit delete when things get complicated. Which leaves us with one final thought. In a world of generated and deleted content, who actually gets to write the final draft of the story?